How do you make positive change stick in your life? Here's a quick hint. It's not willpower. I'll cut to the chase and be straightforward with you right here. The key is habits. I'm gonna tell you what I've been doing to improve my daily life, instilling habits like waking up early in the morning, getting more reading done, getting proper exercise, watching out for my digital mental health, pre-planning for work and reducing the distractions, and moreover, making them stick. In a also very, very challenging 2023. We're going to talk about habits, how to instill them, how to make them last, but not without delving into the science behind it too, which is very, very cool. I know this all sounds common sense, but quoting Sean Aker, one of the funniest TED Talk speakers by the way, common sense is not always common action. Your knowledge means nothing if it just sits in your brain, needless to say if it doesn't exist in the first place. So paraphrasing from his book and in my own words, the key to making positive change in life for the long run is making it easier for good habits and making it harder for bad ones. So what does it take to stall yourself from eating that piece of cake left over in the fridge when you're planning on losing 10 pounds in the next 3 months? What does it take to get up early in the morning every day and just jog for 5 miles? The answer in every way seems to come down to willpower. A lot of motivational speakers like to talk about how you can just do it! Thank you, Shia. But the problem is, not only is willpower fragile, but so is the concept of willpower. From a 2011 APA survey, American Psychological Association, 27% of Americans reported that lack of willpower was the most significant barrier to change. In the same article, it defines willpower as the ability to delay gratification, resisting short-term temptations in order to meet long-term goals. And here's where it gets quite interesting. At the bottom it says willpower is a limited resource capable of being depleted, which means the more you exert your self-control power, the lesser it becomes. And it kind of makes sense because when you're staring at that piece of cake you've been pushing back on and eventually you break, I'm gonna eat that cake anyways, I'll start my diet tomorrow, whatever. Reasonable because you ran out of willpower. There are 2 renowned experiments that address this, and one is the very, very famous marshmallow experiment, which was conducted in the 70s, where children were to push back on eating a marshmallow right away in order to receive a bigger reward later. 2 marshmallows. The research indicated that children who delayed immediate gratification for the later yet bigger reward turned out to be more prosperous in the future. Another classic experiment was by Roy Baumeister, which was published in 1998. It used cookies as the temptation, which is flat out cruel if I were to say. It found that people who were required to resist the cookies compared to people who weren't gave up more easily while processing a task they were assigned to, and thus the coining of the term willpower depletion. Basically saying when you're fighting temptation in your head, it depletes your energy to process additional information. Sounds very logical. However, this notion has been increasingly challenged throughout recent years. And that's just the way science is. It keeps progressing, not taking anything away from the former research. Instead, they were the cornerstone that got us to where we are today. So all I have is respect. However, in a widely cited journal article published in 2017, it was written, against popular and scientific wisdom, effortful self-control did not appear to play a role in goal pursuit. People who generally experience more temptations were less likely to succeed. And researchers revisited the marshmallow experiment, quoting the 1970 research which had written itself, the children with better self-control distracted themselves and avoided looking at the tempting treat. And thus they wrote, being able to avoid temptations rather than the strength of self-control itself may be the true predictor of the positive outcomes experienced by those children who did not eat the marshmallow. And they came to their own conclusion, word for word. Our results suggest that the path to better self-regulation lies not in increasing self-control, but in removing the temptations available in our environments. So, as to where science has brought us today, the key to achieving goals just might not be the willpower we exert in the face of temptation, but instead the skill to avoid temptation altogether in the first place. Boom! I know, mind-blowing, right? But to each person, temptation means different things. Some people just enjoy exercising, while others have to drag themselves to the gym. Some people don't like the taste of sugared sweets, while others make New Year's resolutions to wean off of them every day. From where I'm from, people love bubble tea. It's a part of the culture. They just love getting a sip of those tea booth beverages, which, by the way, are the high sugar nemesis of people who are trying to lose weight. To me, I just don't like them. I drink bubble tea for social purposes. Hey, you wanna go get a bubble tea or something? Yeah, why not? I don't know if it's in my genes or if I was just raised that way. I always remember my dad taking pride in drinking water. He'd be like, I don't drink beverages, I only drink water. Water is the best. For some people, exercise is excruciating. To me, it's a drug. To be fair, it does catalyze the secretion of dopamine. But I just don't mind running after a soccer ball under the scorching sun for 3 hours in a row as if I'm some golden retriever, until you start cramping, of course. So to some extent, what spells temptation to each person differs in the genes and how we were brought up, which is hardwired in us. But then, how do we change the unchangeable, especially if it's for a better cause? And this is where habit enters the chat. Habits, either good or bad, are a way of automating behavior using the least effort, says not me, but Brian Gala and Angela Duckworth, which the latter is the author of the bestseller Grit, and together they presented this journal article in 2015. It says here, individuals with better self-control do in fact rely on beneficial habits and routines. This includes healthy eating habits, exercising, more stable bedtime and wake time routines, etc. Self-control predicted stronger habits, which in turn predicted the ability to initiate valuable behaviors automatically and without needing to exert as much effort, without taking much time to decide whether or not to enact the behavior, and without the need to inhibit strong temptations. So with good habits, good routines, you're basically programming yourself to automatically elude temptations and instead lean towards behavior that'll lead to desired results. The problem is, how do you sustain these habits? So as we said in the beginning, it's about making it easier for good habits and making it difficult for bad habits. Lowering the threshold for good habits, making it easier, and creating a higher threshold for bad habits so it's harder. And the key word is accessibility. All of our bad habits are bad habits because they're easy to access. There's always a tea booth around the corner. There's always a festival of junk food at your nearest convenience store. There's always infinite snooze buttons to press in the morning, so it's really easy to sink into these behavioral patterns and really hard to get out. On the other hand, the gym is always too far away. It's always a hassle to have to wash up after training. It's always too early in the morning to get up to meditate, read, or pray. Intrinsically, it's just hard to kickstart these behaviors. Here are several things I've been doing for years or have been trying to do as of lately to try to push back on some of my bad habits. I deleted the YouTube Analytics app on my phone a long time ago because I didn't want to be checking my views every 15 minutes, which I did and was very unhealthy and unproductive. Like, you're not going to get more views by checking on views. Now whenever I need to check my figures, I use my laptop instead, which is way less easy to access than my phone. So off the top of your head, there's probably a couple of apps on your phone that are way too easy to access, but probably not that constructive to life, if not destructive, then just delete them.
Delete, I suggest.
I keep a soccer game, football game, whatever you call it in your place of the world. I keep a mobile game on my old smartphone, because it does exist for entertainment purposes. But at the same time, I don't want to be on it all the time, and apparently I'm not carrying my old phone everywhere I go. And the battery doesn't last long. It only lasts for like 3 games and then it shuts down, so... Yeah, I'm not allowed to play too long, stricter than my mom. I had this default newsfeed on my text app, which I recently found a way to turn off, thank the Lord. Cause, you know, the news it was shoving in my face was a lot of the times uninformative. The news titles were a lot of the times provocative, clickbaity, not to mention the comment section. If you ever want to experience the darker side of humankind, voila, just make comments anonymous. And that's just something I didn't want in my life. So I got that turned off, and for a while I didn't have the news. To be honest, I felt kind of out of touch, a little bit of FOMO. I tried to turn it back on, but then instantly regretted it. So eventually I winded up installing a couple of news apps of my own choice. And the end result, I'm not spending time scrolling through endless, meaningless, oftentimes negative news no more. Instead, whenever I need my news, I purposefully go to my own trustworthy, hand-picked news sources. Try it, it just makes life so much easier. Also, as a freelancer, there are mountains of distractions at work. One of the rare, very rare disadvantages of not having a boss constantly looking over your shoulder. And so you have to avoid those temptations. For me, one of them in particular was my webpage, default webpage. It was taking me to so many different wonderful places with so many links to click on when I so shouldn't be checking out the latest Mr. Beast video when I'm trying to write a script for my next video. And so I switched my default to this. But then there were these tiny little shortcut icons at the bottom which also lured me into clicking on them, and then I would wander off again. And how stupid of me, it took me some time to realize, oh, you could actually delete those. So I deleted those unnecessary icons. And now I have a super clean webpage. I'm cyberly clean. Is cyberly even a word? I also turned off the autoplay function on YouTube so that it doesn't automatically jump to something that takes another 10 minutes of my time away. I hope this video doesn't get demonetized. And so is the same with your physical environment. Leaving only the things related to work on my desk has helped me concentrate a ton. So every couple of days, I clean my desk and get things back in order. Anything that is distracting goes away. And that includes the abyss of distractions, the smartphone. When I'm working, my cell phone is away, out of reach, out of sight, sometimes on do not disturb mode, unless I need to use the calculator, because I don't have a calculator. But all of what I just mentioned is basically of the same concept, raising the threshold for those unwanted behaviors, preventing them from becoming habits, essentially in the purpose of avoiding temptations in the first place. And that's just one side of the coin. How do you flip this? Ooh! We still need to look into how we can make good actions easier to initiate. So one of the things I have been significantly improving was my reading habits, especially my Bible reading habit. I have been a diligent Bible reader before I became a lazy one. Somehow that sounds so delightfully redundant. But reading in general, I haven't got many pages done in quite a long while. And last year I decided if I'm going to meet my life goals, I seriously need to squeeze in time to read. Ironically, the bookshelf is actually right behind me, but somehow it seems like it's on the other hemisphere of Earth. Now here is the tiny adjustment I made, the game changer. I put the Bible on a bookstand on my desk, turned the page to where I last dropped off, and I stacked several other books I felt like reading in a corner of my desk. The results? It became so much easier to become lured into reading just because it was sitting there right in front of me. In the morning, I would sit down in the office space and you see that Bible sitting there, opened and just begging you to read it. Read me, read me, read me. So why not? I'll read a few chapters. And then days, weeks, a few months in, and I've already finished the New Testament a couple times. That is, in fact, more progress than the past 2 years combined. Moreover, when I'm off for my lunch break, I tuck one of those books I've stacked on my desk in my sling bag, cause it's in arm's reach, why not? So now when I'm waiting in line, waiting for my order, I'm reading. And these bits of reading add up a lot. As a matter of fact, the information for this video was probably chowed down at this fast food chain. It's made a huge impact in my work and in my personal life. I cannot stress this more. Accessibility. Another example, pull-ups. Pull-ups are a great exercise, but just by dead hanging alone brings so many benefits to the body. It decompresses the spine, helps your pelvis drop, improves stability in your shoulder joints. But I'm not driving 30 minutes every day to the gym just to dead hang for 60 seconds. So I installed a door frame pull-up bar, easy to access. So every morning, every night before bed, I walk through the door, the bar's right there. Why not? And I just hang for a couple of seconds, maybe throw in a few pull-ups. And just to mention, I don't know if it has anything to do with this at all, but last year I grew an inch taller. And believe me, I'm way past my growth spurt. I also keep a vision training card on my desk because I'm on the computer a lot. I keep a ball on my training mats in the living room, so when I'm not on the field, at least I'm not getting too rusty with my touch. It's not like I'm gonna play an MLS one day or something, but soccer is my greatest hobby. Accessibility is probably why almost every self-help book tells you to keep a list of your goals nearby you to serve as a constant reminder. The easier it is to access, the easier it is to habituate. And as we mentioned earlier, habits automate behavior, require less effort you would have to exert otherwise, and further reduces the time to decide whether to act. Another thing that kind of stands in the way when we're trying to initiate action is what I like to call the dilemma of choice. The fact is, the more choices you have, the more difficult it is to decide, and the longer it takes to make up your mind, the longer the resistance. So we want to lower that resistance, the threshold, remember? And we can do that by limiting our choices. For instance, I always pre-plan the following week each weekend, and I pre-plan the next day the night before. This provides a crucial benefit, because I don't have to sit down in the morning trying to sort out my priorities among the dozens of things I have to do. Everything is just ready and set to go. I sit down, I check my list, and I get straight to work, fully concentrated on the task at hand, knowing that everything has been well thought through. In fact, according to David Rock's book, Your Brain at Work, prioritizing is a very resource-draining task to the brain, and you don't want to be all drained out first thing in the morning. Another thing I've been trying recently, and you can apply this to anything your heart desires, from getting into an exercise routine, meditating, eating habits, to studying, pretty much any routine you want to shift into. For me, it's getting up early and starting my day with a morning prayer. Amen, brother. It is a physically painful experience, but somehow joyful in the soul. Very conflicting. So how do I make it easier to get out of bed when the alarm goes off at 5 in the morning? I try to limit my choices concerning where to pray, what to wear, what I'm gonna pray about. I settle these issues the night before so that I don't have to deal with it when I'm all groggy in the morning. I wake up in the morning, I see my clothes neatly folded aside my prayer mat where I've decided to have my sacred conversation. I don't have to fret over these matters when I get up. All I have to do is drag myself like a zombie to the bathroom, wash my face, safely land on my prayer mat, and if I'm lucky, 20 minutes in, I'll be still awake. I'm not always lucky. I'm sorry, Jesus. All in all, goal achievers excel at cultivating habits to their advantage. They establish these routines, morning rituals to catalyze these beneficial behaviors. And repeatedly over time, this helps make it stick in your life. And as we said, it's all about making it easier for good habits and making it difficult for bad ones. So start thinking of ways to improve your life. I wish you the best. God bless you, and peace. Countless people throughout history to this present day have emphasized so much about the importance of habit, so much that it's become somewhat of a cliche. There is no influence like the influence of habit. 95% of everything you do is the result of habit. We are what we do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle's really into this. And personally, I really like this one. Your net worth to the world is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones. And because reading is a habit to me again now, I am constantly thinking of what to read next.